Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Her Faith Inspires podcast, where we take cultural issues and we tackle them with biblical truth. I have a guest on today that we went to CIA together. That was a Cross-Examined Instructors Academy. Although I don't know that Chris and I really got acquainted there, but because we are all on a Facebook group together and we all are all in this world of apologetics and just trying to provide good reasons for why Christianity is something that we can put our trust in. We are around social media in that same kind of atmosphere. So I asked him to be on today because he's doing great work. And I want to let you know more about Chris, and then I will introduce him to you. After 19 years in law enforcement, including 14 years in the FBI, Chris Gonzales realized the greatest war we are in is for the hearts and minds of our youth. As a Christian husband, father, and pastor, Chris saw the need to fight for our children in the digital realm and to provide a safe place for kids online. So in January of this year, he resigned from the FBI to launch Goodtube Kids, a new platform where youth can laugh, learn, and grow watching entertaining and educational content anchored in the truth and goodness of the Christian faith. Chris, thanks for being on the show today. I'm excited to share you with my audience.
Well, thank you. I can't believe we're here. I can't believe this is really happening. So thank you for having me. And I am excited to share as well with your audience what we're doing.
Yeah, me too. So I like to, I don't know. I think it's fascinating that you were in the FBI. It's like, I don't know. That's just like the FBI seems like when somebody's in law enforcement, and I was just telling you, my dad and my brother used to be, it's like maybe one day they dream about going and being in the FBI.
Sure.
And then you left that to come and do this like ministry work. Was that
Mhm.
hard, or was it just like you're ready because you knew it was the time?
That's a great that's a great question. It was both. The FBI was I remember my wife and I when we were sitting with my family after I graduated from Quantico, and this was back in 2009, and I said, this is like the Olympics for me. This is where I've always wanted to be. It's what I've always wanted to do. And here we are on the precipice of what I thought was going to be the rest of my career. I always said, I can't believe I'm in a job now that I'm going to retire from. Like, this is it. This is what I'm going to do. I never thought I'd be out of law enforcement. And all of a sudden, um, it just started to change. And God started to move me in a different direction. And now here I am leaving the FBI, resigning before I could retire, which is a big thing.
Yeah.
I had a great retirement lined up and good benefits and I had a good job, and I was really in the prime of my career. And here was God calling me into something I never thought I'd be in: children's media, children's ministry. But I think it's important that I didn't really leave protecting youth, right? I didn't really leave the idea of being a protector or the idea of being a truth teller as a pastor and apologist. I'm just doing it in a different realm. So I'm excited about this. I get excited every day, but it is definitely a new arena.
Yeah, that's admirable though, because see, as a teacher coming from the education world, I love being a teacher. Like I love teaching. I love transferring knowledge and seeing people grow and learn. It just, I don't know, it fires me up. And I'm sure you can,
Hmm.
like you're saying, you love doing what you did, but also in some way, like it can be a trap in a little bit of way because it becomes your identity. Like you become known as
Hmm.
that thing. But in reality, like how blessed to be able to go from teaching in that public school system to teaching the truths of God's word. Like I didn't stop being a teacher. I just do it in
Hmm.
a different aspect. And you basically are saying the same thing. So I think sometimes we don't want to leave the thing that maybe we attach
We
our,
know we're
no,
comfortable.
yeah, we're comfortable with. This is what we're known as. I got my
Hmm.
rhythm here. Everybody, in my community knows me as Shanda, the teacher. And then I left that not knowing that I was coming into this. And so I just feel like God is so good. Like I feel like even just saying you're a former FBI agent who's now doing this, like all of a sudden that makes people say, like, okay, I'm interested in this because
Hmm.
you also know the things out there that are, like you were saying, traps we were talking about in your
Hmm.
bio that
Hmm.
are these kids are being exposed to. So you didn't leave that protection what the kids and what you did.
Right.
I just think that that's amazing. I think people need to just sit on that for a while, because I don't know that people, and maybe they do know how hard it is, but I'm not sure people understand how hard that can be at
Mm-hmm.
times, because it does take a leap of faith, and you're going into a whole new, I guess,
Whole new arena.
yeah. And the security of my paycheck coming in every week or month or whenever. Mine came in once a month, as a teacher, and you got that stability, there. And you're really going in with like, hey, Lord, I'm going to trust you with this, because your
Mm-hmm.
passion and your desire drives you forward.
That's right.
So cool.
I was in a place, I'd been in 19 years in law enforcement when I left, 14 years in the FBI. I was on SWAT. I was working white collar crime. I was a breacher on the SWAT team. It's kind of the guy that opens the doors. You get started, use the ram and all that.
Mm,
I knew what I was doing. I had
yeah.
a great place. I was doing exactly what I wanted to be doing, and so to leave it was a real unsettling of things. But I have my wife and my son. I have a young boy, 9 years old, and my wife. They're behind us, or they're behind me, but we're together in this. And
Mhm.
I think one of the things that you said in my bio, which is I left the FBI because I realized that the greater threat was for the battle for the hearts and minds of our children, our especially our tweens and our teens, that's taking place in the digital realm, and that realm needs warriors to go into that space and help take it back.
Yeah.
We can't sit complacent anymore and just allow things to happen, thinking we're in the era of Mr. Rogers, because we're not.
Mhm.
And I give a talk called How to Protect Your Children Physically, Emotionally, and Spiritually in the Digital Age.
Mm,
And in that talk, I tell parents there are real casualties. And by casualties, I mean loss of life. There are teens who are losing their lives. There are youth who are now being exposed on average by age 8 to pornography. We tell parents, if they're online, they're one click from disaster.
yeah.
Is that obscenity? Is that pornography? Is that a dangerous stunt? Is that an encounter with a pedophile? Let me tell your audience, there at any one time, the FBI National Center for Missing and Exploited Children estimate that there are at least 500,000 pedophiles on the very same apps that your youth are on. We're talking about Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook. And when this talk I give, I explain that they are hunting your children in these apps.
Mm,
They're smart, they're aggressive, they are just they just won't quit in an effort to find their next victim. And so parents need to understand that if you don't subscribe to Goodtube Kids, if you don't ever do that, that's fine, because I want your kids to be safe. Now, we want to then also offer us an option, a solution, and that's what we did with Goodtube Kids.
yeah, that's good, because I've been getting, and this is why I even posted it in our CIA group, which I want to ask you about in a minute. I know I haven't even gotten
Mhm.
into all the good questions I want to ask you, but I kind of figured I was going to do this because your bio is super interesting, and I just, like I said, it intrigues me when you leave like a career
That's all
like
right.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I totally relate to that. But then I see the goodness of God and how He's like, your message is so powerful because of where you've come from. Like, your
Hmm.
training in that realm has bringing you like bringing the church such a benefit to have your set of
Thank
eyes
you.
and your knowledge. So I just think that that is so cool, and so I really appreciate the work that you do. You are known as the former FBI agent who started Goodtube Kids, because I believe it was just like about a month ago or so, people within the cross-examined realm was talking about you. They mentioned the one who was
Mm,
the FBI agent, and he started the thing for the kids. So it's funny how like you might leave the
yeah.
FBI, but did you really? Because you're still known as the
Mm,
FBI guy,
it's still
and
there. Yeah.
yeah, it's still there. But again, your knowledge comes in to play here. And I just think that that is such a cool thing. And a lot of parents ask me lately, they've been asking me what
Hmm.
resources there are for kids. And that's why I
Hmm.
was like, okay, Chris, we got to have you on and talk about, you're not just another resource. There's a purpose behind this, and that's what we're going to get
Hmm.
into. So you told us a lot about what you used to do, which is
Right.
again super exciting. Um, why did you, so like, as you're going through this career, Because it doesn't just happen overnight. Like, you know what, I'll quit
No.
next month and then I'll just start this thing. Like, what was that
Mm-mm.
process of thinking? Because it starts to nag at you, right? I mean, you
Mm-hmm.
can explain it, but I think you start to see the need, and you start to look out, and you're saying, okay, there's a greater threat here. And then it starts to, like, you can't pull away from that. And that's why I
That's
think
right.
eventually it becomes quote unquote easy to resign from what you're doing. Because you're right, you're
Mm-hmm.
young, you're not even retirement age. But what was the process to that? And how did your background in law enforcement kind of drive that to see, I need to start this Goodtube Kids and leave what I'm doing and invest all my time and effort into it?
Right. It all started, and I think every parent's had um, this time where their child gets bit by something online, and so it happens to different degrees. But our son Jeremiah was about 7, and he got what I say bit by YouTube, and he was looking up the sizes of planets, and he was just trying to find planet size comparison. He was very into the universe at the time. And he's in our house, in our living room, right under our nose, and he ends up seeing what I think is some sort of dark satire, clickbait type video, and he described it as parents who hate their kids, and the kids' faces had blood on it. And so I think it was just something meant to be funny, or we never saw the video, but it really disturbed him. Why would anybody ever create anything like this? He said. And so then I said, you know what? My fault as a parent. I should have put him onto YouTube Kids. It's very, very safe. It's supposed to be just chosen videos for youth. And when I went onto YouTube Kids, I thought, what have I done? What is this? The first video it recommended was what it's like to be a non-binary transgender boy.
Mm.
This is for children as young as 6. And then I started to look into the status of children's media. And I realized, oh my goodness, we have a real problem. And I said, why can't there just be good things? Why can't there just be GoodTube? And then that was the start. And that was,
Mm.
I don't know, about a year and a half ago, or 2 years now. And so that idea started to really play on my mind. And other parents said, yeah, I wish we had that. And eventually it becomes, okay, well, if not me, then who? If not now, then when?
Yeah.
And one thing I learned when I was in SWAT and in law enforcement in general, is when there's a threat, you don't wait very long to address it, right? You don't say, well, somebody will get it. You look around, I look left, I look right, I don't see anybody, I'll take care of it. And so that was the Lord calling me into it. And I finally realized, I guess I'm the one to do this. And like you said, I have no background in creating apps and content creation and social media management. I had a track I was on, and it didn't involve that. But I do tell parents, I know 2 things. I know how to fight, and I know what's right. And so the
Mhm.
Lord will take care of the rest. And so here we are fighting the good fight. And it's happening every day.
That is so cool. Yeah, that's good stuff. Like, I love that. That is amazing. And that's what, I think you and I were talking to before we press record, is that I have 3 boys and a really great husband. And so I feel
Hmm.
like my job as their mom and a wife is to champion those good men, to be like, no, this is
Hmm.
not toxic masculinity. And I think on the other hand, you're a dad leading the way because you saw this need. And I agree to that extent. Like, I love how you put it, because you put it in those, like, law enforcement terms. Like, if there's a threat, I'm going to go take care of it. And
Hmm.
I remember someone saying before, a lot of times, if you go to the church, in your church, and say, hey, we need this kind of a program, don't sit there and go to the pastor and be like, where's the person leading the program? Because that just might be, if you notice the need, you're probably the one who's going to fill that need. And that could be a scary thing too. Like, whoa, I don't know if I can take this on, because it does seem bigger than you. And in a way, it kind of has to be. It has to be bigger
Hmm.
than us, because then God knows we're going to rely on him. We're going to depend upon him, because it's for
Hmm.
him anyway. And so everything that I feel like I've, like, even, the projects I've taken on in the last year, I'm like, who am I to do these things? Like, I can't do this. but then it gets done by the grace of God, because all the way through you're clinging to him. And the same thing
Yeah.
for you.
Amen.
Like, what am I doing this? And that now you're like 7 months in, I guess, from January, like 6, 7 months in, and look at how much you're getting out there and providing. And it's really amazing to watch. I think it's cool. Which, by the way, which CIA
Thank you.
did you go to? Was it last year or was it 2021?
I want to say it was 2021. Goodness gracious. It may have been last year. Was last year 2022?
Yeah. I know the time's
It
flying.
was in it sure is.
Was it in LA
I can't.
at Jack Hibbs Church, or was it in
No, it
Ohio?
wasn't in LA. It
Was it
was in, I think I want to say
Ohio?
it was in Ohio. I
Okay,
think
that was
so.
last year. Yeah, that was
Yeah.
last year. Okay,
Golly gracious. I can't believe
I know.
it's all happening so fast.
Yeah, I know. It's really good, but that's how the Lord is in it too. So
Yes.
now that you're like you're looking more into this online world and stuff, what
Mhm.
aspects of social media and entertainment and those kinds of avenues, because that's the way the kids are getting their
Mhm.
information these days. That's what's shaping
Mhm.
their worldview. What's the most
Amen.
threatening part of those? I mean, you did say
Well,
500,000.
yeah,
That's
pedophiles.
amazing. Yeah, or on each.
It is amazing. I think the most threatening part of it is actually absent from the actual threat. The most threatening part of it is if we as parents in the church don't realize the threat that this is. If we don't acknowledge that this is a threat, whether we like it or not, it exists and it is happening to our youth. And so we're going to have to get into this fight. I say that our youth are digital natives and we're digital immigrants, right? They grew up in this and we have grown up to this.
Mhm.
They've never known a time when this is any different. And so let's give some statistics. Generation Z, I think they're saying, is spending 7 to 10 hours online. And there are some aspects of Generation Alpha, they're spending up to 14 hours a day online or on some sort of screen.
Mhm.
And so then at Goodtube Kids, we say that our youth are always being preached a message. What is that message? And if they're only in church 1 or maybe 2 hours a week, who's winning the messaging war?
Yeah.
Who has their hands on them more? So then we have to make sure that the time when they're on screens also mirrors the time when they are on at church or when they're at home at dinner with us. We want all of those things to be saying the same Christian faith and values to instill in them. So that's the first thing, is we have to acknowledge that there's a problem. Now that we acknowledge it, let's find out to what degree is that problem. Social media. Our youth don't need to be on social media.
Mhm.
It's just too dangerous. Social media is a well-crafted drug that causes a mental addiction in almost any of us, but especially in our youth, that can lead to disastrous results. And the benefits really aren't worth the risks, particularly for those in that 8 to 18 age range. The younger don't need to be on there at all. They have no business being on there. And the older, even though it seems like it should be good, the the rate at which it leads to disastrous effects is just too great. The suicide rate amongst young teenage females has increased dramatically over the last 20
Yeah.
years. The suicide rate for young males has increased dramatically. I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but I know that it's true. And so the rate at which we used to be able to prevent our youth from engaging or being exposed to pornography or to pedophilia, potentially by saying, don't go over to that house, don't go over to this place, right? But now it's come into our bedrooms, it's come into our living rooms, and it's often on the very device that we're giving them as parents.
Yeah.
We would never hand them the keys to the car or a loaded firearm and say, here you go, without the proper training.
Mm.
And the proper safety mechanisms. And so that's what I need parents to know, is that this phone, right, or that iPad, it has a lot of power in it, and so we're going to need to give them the proper training and protection when they use that tool. There's so much more to say, but those are the first two things. You have to recognize it, and then you have to get engaged.
Yeah.
Once you get engaged, then you can start to take the steps. How do I prevent what's the software? What's the hardware? What are the discussions we need to have? What are the signs I need to look forward to? But you'll never start that if you never are willing to accept that there is a problem.
Yeah, absolutely. I like what you said too about there being, I don't know how you worded it, but basically there's somebody's disciple. Something is shaping
Hmm.
their worldview. And if we're competing with the technology and the devices, and there's not like that at least equal timing. I mean, you may not even want equal time spent uh, you know
Hmm.
forming their worldview and educating them, and them being formed or educated by a device or what's on it. But it's true that we are all someone's disciple. We're being discipled by whatever we're allowing to infiltrate into our minds, because whatever's filtered through the mind, it enters the heart. And the only one, the first line of defense for these kids is the parent. It's parents. And you're right, like I know what it's like to be driving around town and not have a cell phone. When I started driving,
Hmm.
cell phones were like for doctors, and they were like in suitcases. They were so big, and then when I finally got one, it was like the flip phone. There was no social media. Um, so we know what it's like to live life without them. These kids don't know what it's like to be without them. And
Hmm.
it's a great point too. Like, you don't just hand them a gun and be like, here, carry this around with you. You teach them how to use
Right.
these tools. Because in reality, they have to look at that device as a tool, not as
That's right.
just this that my life won't function without this. I mean, basically your life will function without a dishwasher. It will function without certain
Right.
other parts of technology. Like, you can do things without it. It's good for them to see the usefulness in it. So
Yeah, in youth, particularly the tweens and teens, they often will express a relief or a bit of the weight taken off of their shoulders when they go on tech fasts, right? When they're away from their tech for a while. So another clue to parents is if your youth can simply not have that phone in their bedroom. They don't
yeah.
need it in their bedroom. We would never allow our children to walk around like the middle of some big city and then just engage with conversations with anybody that might happen to walk up to them. But yet when that phone's in the bedroom, everyone's in there with them.
Mm,
And um, there are a lot of apps. It's hard to get into all of that here, and I hope to be able to speak in the future about some of these things. But in the
yeah.
talk I give, I talk about some of the apps that you need to look for in your children's phone. You need to be involved with that phone, just like when we would track, did our child get a speeding ticket, right? Were they going
Yeah.
100 and a 30? We would say, okay, there's a problem here. You're not doing the right things. Well, if we see these apps on our phone, on our youth's phones, we say, okay, there's a problem here. You're not doing the right things. There's one called Omegle, and it's a app where it will video chat you, your youth, or anybody with a stranger somewhere around the world. And so oftentimes you think, oh, well, it's a random encounter. Anything that happens here is protected because it's just going to disappear. They don't know that the stranger is recording. And the number of times you are exposed to pornographic, obscene content is significantly high. It's not a safe app, and that goes with every other app. We don't realize as adults that our kids are just one click from disaster.
Yeah.
And I think that one of the statistics I heard is there's 7 clicks from an encounter, from a personal encounter with a pedophile. So 7 clicks, that pedophile gets them off of that app into another app. There's one that's made to look like a calculator, and that pedophile will tell them to put their images that they send to the pedophile in that calculator app, so the parent doesn't see it in the phone's search and image history. So just letting parents know, hey, listen, did you realize these apps were out there and that this is how they're doing it? I think brings, illuminates. Oh my goodness, I didn't realize it was that sophisticated.
Yeah.
Um, so we need to be involved.
Yeah. I think that's probably, I think it's definitely one aspect. Like, well, from what I see, sometimes parents see that there's an issue, they don't even know where to begin to tackle it.
Hmm.
And I think that's great information where you come in, where you can provide these practical steps.
Mhm.
And it always starts in the home. Like everything starts in the
Mhm.
home. Like even discipleship starts in the home. It doesn't do me any good. And I've told my boys this, so they're more willing to sit down with me when I teach them. Why would I write courses for kids and teach them to other people's kids if I haven't taught them to my own children first? Like, what kind of
Mhm.
mom am I,
Mhm.
right? Like, let me write down these great, apologetics lessons and get them, out there into the world. And then my kids have never laid eyes on them or learned from me. I'm not doing it justice. So it's the same thing here. Like, how can we leave our kids to themselves to navigate? And
Mhm.
it's like Proverbs says, a child left to his own brings shame to his mother. And we can look at that with technological devices too. Leaving a child
Mhm.
to his
Mhm.
own, there's that's unfair to the kid. We need to learn how to parent through that. And so I have a couple questions for you. First of all, have you heard of Andy Crouch's Tech Wise? Have you ever read that book or anything?
I have heard of it. I haven't read it yet, but I actually do recommend it in our like resources for parents.
Yeah.
We send a weekly email out, and that's free if anybody wants to sign up for it at goodtubekids.com. And we'll recommend books like that. TechWise is one of them, and links to those websites. So definitely, I have heard of it and reviewed some of the information in it, but haven't
Yeah.
read it yet.
Okay, good. Yeah, it's a good one. And he talks about helping the family establish, um, like you said, breaks from devices. And he talks about
Hmm.
even the history of technology itself, which a lot of times people think technology, I flipped a switch and my computer comes on, but it's a lot. There's a lot more simplified types of technology than just that. Like even the
Hmm.
stapler, the stapler, like these, obviously we've advanced since then, but um it's really interesting. He says to take
Hmm.
1 hour a day, 1 day a week, and 1 week out of the year off from like these social media breaks. And but he just gives practical tips on how to teach your kids how to navigate. And it's basically for the
Hmm.
whole family. And he talks about whatever is in the center of your home is what forms you. It's what shapes you. So if your device is the center of your life, your device is what's shaping you. It's what forms you. And that just
Hmm.
gets me too. Like if your office is where you have all your devices, obviously that's what's shaping your work. It's not necessarily shaping your life. It's shaping that aspect, but it's something to think about. Like, am I allowing
Hmm.
my child's device to shape
To
them?
shape them.
Yeah. And those questions can be sobering and
Very,
very,
very.
yeah. But as far as your talk, do you have that on audio or something where people can like go and listen to
Yeah.
it?
We don't have it on audio yet. We're looking to record that. We're trying to give it everywhere we go. So if somebody reaches out, if they'd like for us to give that talk to their church
Yeah.
or something like that, we can come do that. The talk in person is pretty powerful, and I can also help answer some questions. So they can reach out to us at info@goodtubekids.com, and
Okay.
we can discuss that because we want to get the talk out there.
Yeah.
We just haven't recorded it yet in a way that we can send it off.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting to me too. I want to hear more about that for sure. Um so when we're talking about parents' responsibilities with this,
Hmm.
and I mean I
I can.
fall into the rhythms of life.
We all
And
do.
yeah, and I can be like, oh wait, I haven't been, you lay down rules, but then somebody has to enforce them, and then you realize you've gotten
Hmm.
lax with them. So I'm not trying to say that I'm the perfect parent or have this figured out either. But why should parents like vet what their children are watching? And I'll be honest, like my boys
Hmm.
will come to me and say, hey, can I buy this game? And there are like even with movies, my boys also know to go to it's the oh my gosh, I'm forgetting the website
Plugged
right
in,
now. No, not
plugged
Plugged
in, or
In.
common sense.
Common Sense Media. Yeah, they'll go to Common Sense Media and look up why the movie's rated
Hmm.
what it is, what content it will have in it, and things like that. And a lot of times we're always watching movies together, so it gives a really good pause of the movie and talk about the worldview.
Hmm.
They hate that, by the way. Like I've said that several times. My boys get
Hmm.
really irritated, like, we know. But um, my point is vetting it, but then also my boys are older too. They're teenagers.
Hmm.
So it's easier to teach them and then become more independent. But why is that so important for parents to do. And it's not just technology necessarily. It's like reading books, because we're talking about that
Yeah,
right now, right?
everything.
With the school
Yep.
libraries and stuff like that, listening to like music. And then what age do you
Hmm.
think a parent steps away from that? Because we're not always gonna, I mean, when they're 25, we're not looking over their shoulder, obviously,
Sure.
but just looking at how to navigate that.
Yeah, there's a few things that I give an example, particularly from law enforcement. When we used to do active shooter training, we would, you always imagine the school or this big building that you're moving down the hallway in. And when you're moving down that hallway, if I'm with a SWAT brother of mine, we're standing shoulder to shoulder, right? We both have armor, we both have rifles, and we're moving down that hallway. But if we have somebody we need to get out of the building or need to get in the building, let's imagine it's a doctor or the key holder, or we need to get somebody injured out of the building, you would imagine they wouldn't stand in front of us. They're not going to stand in between us. They're going to stand behind us. And so, because they're not prepared, right? They're not prepared to fight. They're not trained to fight. That is how we have to imagine our youth. They need to stand behind us as we protect them. Anything that's going to get to them has to go through us. And so we need to think about that when we talk about the movies that they're going to see and the books that they're going to read. Now, once you find a trusted source, right? Once I find a trusted place, I can say, okay, you can go here. That's what Goodtube Kids wants to be, right? It's a trusted place where you don't have to vet every single thing they're watching,
Mhm.
because the whole platform's built from the ground up. But you don't know that with Netflix, and you don't know that with HBO Max. In fact, to the contrary, you know something different. Let's talk about YouTube Kids, which was the first thing that led us to Goodtube Kids. I don't know if you're aware, but on YouTube Kids, we have an ebook called Poisoned Candy,
Mhm.
which we can send out to your audience so they can come look for it on a GoodTube Kids, and it's about children's media. Now on YouTube Kids, the first video I told you recommended for my son was about being a transgender, non-binary boy. As I started to look further into this, one of the videos that you'll see on goodtubekids.com that explains to parents, not on the safe site for kids, but on the website, it's a male in drag singing "It's Okay to Be Gay" in this very children's song manner. And it sounds innocent if you're not listening, if you're not really listening to the words. The same goes on that channel. There's hundreds of videos like this on YouTube Kids. In fact, there's one video where a young female who claims to be a lesbian says that if you want, she's telling children, I think as young as 9, if you want transgender assistance, go to Planned Parenthood and they won't tell your parents.
Mm. Wow.
So think about the messaging. Think about the problem of the messaging here is not only did I say, here, you can watch YouTube Kids, I'm telling them that they can watch this, then this is the messaging that they get.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I condoned it when I gave it to them because I didn't really realize what I was giving to them, right? My son was watching Dennis the Menace, the old black and white cartoons. What could be more wholesome than the old black and white Dennis the Menace? We were getting ready for a camping trip, and in the middle of him watching this, it was on a freebie. It's like it's not really free. Anytime that something's free, you're probably paying for it with your eyeballs, right? You're probably
Mm.
paying for it with your time and attention.
Yeah.
And so Freebie comes up with an ad, and it said there was a show called Drag Him. This really bright lights, and it's this male that shows how he dresses in drag and dances. And it was in the middle of this show I thought was safe. Well, the show was, but the ad wasn't, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's talk about YouTube. We talk about YouTube as gold in a minefield, which means that there's a lot of good out there, but there's just so much danger.
Mm.
There is unrestricted pornography that anyone can access. Now, if I hate to explain this to listeners because it really like breaks it's just disturbing. There's a video that's on YouTube that anyone can access, unrestricted. Your youth can access it, and it is two men inserting things into each other, trying to figure out what they are by
Mm.
guessing.
Mm.
Now, that's the same place we're sending our kids to look up how to put a bike together, how to fix a tie.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do when they come across that? There's no going back from that,
Sure.
right? They've been exposed to it, right?
Yeah.
And so GoodTube Kids, the name is sometimes deceiving because teens or parents think, well, my teen's not a kid, right? They are still kids.
Yeah.
right? They in fact need the most protection mentally because they're the ones that are in the battlefield of ideas,
Yep.
right? It's not normally our youngest kids that are there having to deal with these topics as often, but our older kids are just starting to go out there. And if we're not engaged with what's going on in their life, then we all of a sudden become surprised when they walk away from the faith or when they start adhering to transgender ideology. We say, where did this come from? They were being preached it for a year and a half. So that's why one of the reasons we try to tell people Goodtube Kids is for those kids 8 to 18. There's a lot of great options for the younger kids, but those youth that want to learn hobbies and jobs and careers, but they want to learn that they don't have to hide their faith or they don't have to separate their mind, their academic mind, from their faith. We want to show them that without everything having to be a sermon, because there's always a message, right? There's always a worldview being taught, like you said in those movies.
Right.
So we really need to be involved in what are our youth watching? What are they seeing on YouTube? What are they seeing on Netflix? Even just the ads.
Yeah.
My son has scrolled through and said, I shouldn't be seeing these ads. Why are they showing this? And he's 9. He
Yeah.
knows that this is inappropriate. Getting involved, and now I do think a lot of people are starting to realize, okay, we need to be involved. But that was the other part, like you said, when you go to your pastor, when you go to your boss, or when you have a problem, a good employee says, "Here's the problem, here's the solution."
Hmm.
And so that's what we're trying to do is not only highlight the problem, but then also give a solution. A lot of good folks are highlighting the problem. That's great. Let everybody know about it. But then as adults, parents are saying, okay, well, I close this off, I close this off, I close this off, and I'm running out of options. I don't have a place where they can go
Hmm.
because screen time isn't inherently bad, right? You're at
Right.
the restaurant and your kid wants to look at something or they want to look up something because they want to get better at fitness or boxing or they want to look at a career. I'm telling you, if we're sending them to YouTube, we are it's at our own risk, our own peril. It's
Right.
unfortunate that has become that way, but it is that way.
Yeah. I actually mentioned, I think it was on the podcast that aired this week, that sometimes we say, if you don't do it, that's on you. But these decisions are really at the expense of our kids. Like if we
Mm-hmm.
are not being diligent, it's not just like, oh, well, I didn't teach my kid, yeah, I don't know, like you said,
Mm-hmm.
how to write a resume, and now they're going for a job interview. I didn't prepare them. That has very small repercussions and consequences.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if I take a back seat to something like teaching them how to navigate this technology, and like
Mm-hmm.
you're teaching your son how to discern, I shouldn't be watching this. If we don't do that, it's at their expense of, and like you said, you can never go back. Like once these kids are exposed to these, and it's a visual, YouTube is something that you watch and you
Mm-hmm.
listen to. And those
Mm-hmm.
images are now forever embedded into their minds, and they can't unsee that. That it is what it is. And another point that you make is really good. And I didn't really think about it, but it makes sense. My mother-in-law was telling me, I think it was a couple weeks ago, she downloaded a free game, and in the middle
Mm-hmm.
of the game,
Mm-hmm.
they'll stop and show you the ad. And it was all
Mm-hmm.
about homosexuality and things, which it was probably right at the end of June. And that's what they're pushing. I mean, I listen to music on
Mm-hmm.
Pandora where you can make your own channel and do my work. And I'll look down and it'll be like a big LGBTQ flag and whatever
Mm-hmm.
promoting, Pride Month and all that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I can't even just listen to a song without looking down and seeing an image. And
Mm-hmm.
it's teaching your kids how to discern and to distinguish between right and wrong, but to not even go there and be like, what is this okay to watch, rather than saying that, even just start with the question of the app. This is what's on the app.
Mm-hmm.
So should we even be there? Is it worth putting our kids at risk?
Mm-hmm.
And
That's right.
I like what you said too, a gold mine where there's some gold, there's good things, but there's also a lot of danger to get to
Mm-hmm.
that. And yeah, those are just really good uh, examples to tie into all this that makes sense. We can relate to that. And it's heavy.
One of your What it is heavy. It's really heavy. It's sobering in the sense that I just didn't realize this was this dangerous. My wife, when she heard me give the talk one time, she said she said, I'm sitting right next to you while you're building this, building this out. And she said, I never realized this.
Yeah.
And I said, I know most parents don't realize just how dangerous it is out there. Not only there's levels, right? There's levels of this, the pedophiles, like the physical danger of somebody coming to get your child, the emotional danger of what somebody says, the bullying, right, that happens on social media, and then the worldview danger, as all of a sudden, but I had my kid in church every week
Yeah.
for an hour,
Yep.
and then they went home and they watched YouTube for 4 or 5 hours, and I don't know why they left the faith. Well, who was teaching them, right?
Yeah.
And then when those kids are exposed to these things, it can be really scarring, and it can lead to eating disorders, especially for young ladies. It can lead to more dangerous activity than a young man would have taken on their own. It's not that these things are new. Pedophilia, pornography, obscenity, idiotic ideas, eating disorders, and bullying. It's not that they're new. It's the rate at which our youth are being exposed.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't just the few hours at school. Now it's 24/7. They wake up to it. They go to bed with it. It's in their room at dinner time. It's pinging them all the time, all the time, all the time. And so we have to get back in. If we're going to protect our children, we have to protect them not only physically, right, at the house, in the neighborhood, at the school, but in the digital realm.
Mm-hmm.
If your child has access to the internet via some device, or their friends have access to the internet, these dangers will and always can be a possibility, at the very least.
Yeah.
So if once parents acknowledge that, then they can start to take action.
Mm. Yeah. I think that we always ask, I've been asking in the last, few years, I'm like, how in the world did we get here so fast? Like, we're talking about, I think it was 2015 when you have, the whole
Mhm.
nationwide, they approved gay marriage, and now you're in 2023 and a man can be a woman. It's like we're arguing about basic biology. And I'm like, what? Why so quick? And like you said, I think technology has a lot to do even with the
Huge
speed
role.
of immorality, like the moral decline at such a fast rate. And I mean, I think about those things, like it makes sense, but when you're saying it, then I'm like, it has to be, because like you said, it's in here 24/7. You're being exposed to
Mm-hmm.
these things that you had to go
Mm-hmm.
find. Like if you wanted to be if you wanted
A
to look,
Satanist, if you went to, yeah.
yeah, like you had to go find those people. You had to go out and engage in that act. You had to go, you had to be proactive, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
about it. Whereas now you can be so passive and just turn your phone on, go to YouTube, and there it is. So it's just brought in an easy access. And I think even that doesn't even do it justice. It's more than just easy access. It's just, here it is.
No,
If
it,
you
it
choose
it
to,
is what is, yeah. It is what is pressured upon us. That's one of the things I tell, the thing at Goodtube Kids, imagine if something got by us and it was, really everything is being uploaded through just a few core individuals, right? That hear it here through our system. But imagine something slipped by, right? I didn't realize there was a sign in the back of this video. And I would say, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. Thank you for flagging it. We'll take it off. We'll make sure it's corrected. That's not what's happening at Netflix and HBO Max and YouTube Kids. They don't think, oops, this slipped through. They think this is what is good. And so
yes.
our worldviews are diametrically opposed. They
Mhm.
they do not conform to each other. And so therefore, when we're like, well, why is this there? It's there because it is what I want to show your children. It is what we want your children to be exposed to. It is what we want them to believe is good. And so that's why we have to then, you talked earlier about the rapidity at which um, technology has moved these bad ideas throughout the world. And I remember Hank Hanegraaff, when I first got into apologetics, I remember listening to him as kind of an intro to apologetics. Then he would say that a lie can go halfway around the world before truth has had an opportunity to put its boots on.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But as Christians, I give the example of, we've been in this harbor of the U.S. being really founded on Christian principles at its very core, and we've been in this safe harbor thinking that, oh, it won't affect us. And most of our communities weren't really affected. And for a long time, the storm was coming. The storm was coming. The pirates were coming. It's all coming. And we just started to close off doors or shut the windows and pull the blinds down. And now all of a sudden, the community is surrounded by this chaos. And we wonder, well, what happened? It's because we didn't go out into the frontier and take it back. And so now we're in a position where we're saying, we're surrounded. What are we supposed to do? Now you have to go out and fight back.
Yeah.
Now you have to go back and take back those spaces that we have acquiesced. And the digital realm being one of the greater spaces that we've just acquiesced for years. So that's one of the things that when I say we need some warriors out there saying, let's take back this space, let's put the fence another few feet further so that we can a safe place for our youth.
Yeah. And who better to encourage everyone to do that than the man who used to run into danger? You know what I mean? Like, hey, let's go take back this territory that that has been overtaken by the bad guys. So I think that that's really, really great coming from you. So now will you tell us a little bit about like Goodtube Kids? What kinds of resources
Sure.
are you guys publishing? What's your vision for that? And
Great.
how does that
Yeah.
vary by age?
So Goodtube Kids is two things, a safe place for kids and a resource for parents. I know that name kids, like I said earlier, a lot of people think, oh, well, it's for my 0 to 6-year-old. That's my kids. But our children, our kids are 13, 14, 15-year-olds, and they really lack options. My son, he got tired with Minnow and Yippee. And, I wouldn't say that they're competitors because from what I see, they're trying to do good work for the kingdom. They're trying to bring children safe, edifying, God-honoring content. And he just said, I need something. He just needed more than Veggie Tales, right? He wants that a little bit more. And so that's what we're trying to produce. Now we are getting more and more content for the younger children. We, in fact, are getting a new partner that's going to have some stuff for the very youngest kids so that they can go there too. Because some families want to have one subscription where they can get everything. And that's something we would like to be. On the other hand, we just went and filmed a fishing trip out in Homer, Alaska, where we were fishing for halibut and cod on my buddy Pastor Josh's boat. And so what we want to do is film those adventures and have youth seeing us go do those things and then bring the fish back. And now we want to cook it and film that and show youth how it goes from the ocean to their tables and how does it become these delicious things that we eat. And so we like to say if it's good, it's on Goodtube Kids, and that's a lot of things. We can go learn firearm safety. We can go talk to interview a professional chef that's a Christian, and what's it like to be a professional chef? What's it like to be a first-year firefighter or a Navy SEAL, or what's it like to be an artist? I'm a teen artist, and this is what I draw, or I'm an MMA fighter. There's all these great things that we can show youth how they can be in the world but not of the world, and give them a safe place to explore that. So right now we have about 10,000, a little over 10,000 minutes of content. It's about 150 hours. Cross-Examined has been an excellent partner. Reasonable Faith, a lot of Christian apologetics groups are helping provide content. Mike Lacona, Dr. Tim Stratton with Free Thinking Ministries. And that's within our Christian realm. But then we also have drawing that we're adding, how to draw certain characters and how to draw and do Photoshop. And we have music, how to play these songs on the guitar. And we have content from David Lopez, a comedian, on there so that kids can go and laugh in a safe place. And so we're trying to just create this whole environment with lots of options for everybody, but with all that other stuff not just filtered out. It's just not there. It's just not on the platform so that you have to worry it's going to come up.
That's awesome. Like you're totally speaking my kids' language because like I said, I have 3 boys and they love to fish. My husband grew up fishing and hunting, but he loves fishing more. So I know for them, they would love to see the video of you guys going out and fishing and halibut and all that. Oh my gosh. Because you live like in Alaska or that.
Yep. I'm in Alaska.
Yeah.
Out here in God's country.
Yeah, for sure. Because we took a cruise to Alaska a few years ago and my husband's like, that was his favorite cruise and he would love to go do that sort of thing. But yeah, and even like the drawing and that's another example that Andy Crouch gives. Like when you have technology, you become a push play person. Whereas but like sometimes people they watch a
Hmm.
video. My son learned how to change his oil by watching a video on
Hmm.
how to change the oil. He didn't know how to do that. He was all proud of himself, saved himself some money by doing it,
That's
and
right.
learning it. And so he was saying the difference between creation and like the producing of it and the consuming of it,
Hmm.
where you guys are encouraging consuming it, but you're producing that content and you're
Yeah.
encouraging other kids to learn how to consume it to produce it, is what I'm trying to say,
That's right.
which is
Yeah.
great.
Consume to do. Yeah. We want to
Exactly.
consume to do. We want to encourage them. I tell parents, I don't want your child hooked on GoodTube Kids. We don't create GoodTube Kids in this with the same sort of algorithms where we want their eyes just constantly fed. In fact, we say that GoodTube Kids is a lot like steak and mashed potatoes, right? It's what you want your kids eating.
Hmm.
A lot of these other groups, it's cotton candy and Mountain Dew, right?
Hmm.
It's going to be great for a while, but they're going to feel sick and get cavities at the end of it.
Yeah.
And that's because I know at the end of my life, when I go to heaven, I'm going to have to answer for everything I said, it
Yeah.
didn't say, for everything I did and didn't do. And I can tell you that these other media companies don't think like that,
Oh,
right?
sure.
And so I don't want to create something for your children that I wouldn't want my own son on.
Mm.
Um, and so when we create this platform, we want to show them things where they can learn, right? They can get exposed to adventures they've never been on. They can get inspired to go do these things. We want to show them how to work with charities. How can I start working with the charity? Well, start. Here are some that we're working with, and your parents can go to our resource page and find these charities if you'd like to work with them.
Yeah.
Or what's a good group for kids? Well, there's Trail Life and American Heritage Girls. Well, how do I work with them? Here's some of the things they're doing. That's what a meeting looks like. So we want to use this to inspire them to do better, to educate them on how to do things well, but not as a just trap. Now, on the other hand, I think it's important to have some downtime and some comedy. We would like to look at some cartoons that are healthy and just fun to watch,
Yeah.
but still all anchored in that Proverbs 22:6, right? Train up a child in the way they should go. When they're old, they won't depart from it. That's
Yeah.
the founding verse for Goodtube Kids.
Mm.
So if everything's built off of this idea that are we training up our children in the way they should go, I think we'll continue to build a sturdy, strong building.
Yeah, that's good. So how does that membership work if parents are like, wait, I got to check this out?
Sure.
How does it work?
It's great. So it's just $10 a month, and they can go to goodtubekids.com, and
Wow.
then you'll see a link. It says kids, click here, and that's for you to click for your children. If you have your Apple or Android phone, you can search GoodTube Kids, and that's GOODTUBE, then space kids, KIDS, and they can find it in the Apple and Android store now. As soon as we get enough subscribers, and we'll be able to fund the next round, which will be the Roku TV and the Amazon Fire TV and all those things, so they can access it on the TV.
Wow.
And we're asking folks, I appreciate this opportunity. If you believe in this mission, right? If you believe that we need to take back the digital realm, if you think that your youth can benefit from this, subscribe now. I know we're just getting started. We don't have, I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of hours that YouTube has, but we have great content, and more is being added literally every day. We have more in the works. We have some audio drama content on there. Um, we're going to be reading some audio books on there, so that really anything that your youth is looking for, they can find in this realm. And it's just $10 a month. I know that's saying a lot in an economy that's suffering, but if you could protect your youth and not have to worry about what they were being exposed to, I think it's worth it. I think it's a worthy mission. And if you're, I'll say this also, if you're listening to this and you don't have youth in the home anymore, maybe you don't have grandkids, but you want to help, there are ways to help financially sponsor us on goodtubekids.com. You can just sign up for as little as $5 a month, or $50 a month if you want to help, me and my family be able to do this every day.
Yeah.
We're reaching out to folks and saying, hey, I am proud of what we're doing. I think this mission is worthy. And if you want to walk alongside us and help us with that, we certainly appreciate it. And of course, prayer helps every day. Sometimes
Yeah.
I look at the mountain we have ahead of us, but I look back behind me. Like you said, we're 7 months behind. Now we have the apps.
Yep.
Now I get to be on your podcast. Now we're getting to go around and speak. And golly, I'm so thankful for God giving me what I need today, right?
Yeah.
Not more than
Yeah.
I need, not less than I need, just what I need today.
Yeah. That's awesome. $10 a month. Oh my gosh. Like you can cut if you're like really down to the wire, like you can cut out a couple lattes, a month and be like, let me get this for my kids.
Sure.
And
Hmm.
there's a way to be creative, I think, because we do need to support the ones who are promoting a biblical worldview. And like you said, it's not bad. It is a tool. How are you going to use it? You're going to use it for good.
How are you going to
And
use
I
it?
think, yeah, and I think that this is definitely an investment worth taking. And like you said, if people are like, oh, I don't have kids in the home, but I definitely want to help get this in front of families
Hmm.
who do have kids, then they can go to your website and they can find out
Hmm.
how to support your
How to help
ministry.
support us there. Hmm.
Yeah. And if you guys, if you're listening and you're like, we would like to have Chris come to our church and we would like for him to give this talk to parents and equip parents, then you need to reach out to him. You guys are doing
Hmm.
great work, Chris. I know, you're willing to go. I think I want to have you back on and do the talk. Cause I'm like, what is the talk? Like you gave us some points
Sure. Sure.
and I'm like, I want to know what that is. I want to hear that. So we'll have to set something up for sure.
You
This
got it.
is, this is so needed. Parents, you have resources. Sometimes we just need to know where to look to find them. And Chris is saying, hey,
That's
we're
right.
right here. And I think it's good to be a part of something new. I think it's in the Old Testament, I can't remember if it's Zechariah, but God does not despise new beginnings. There is
Hmm.
a joy and a freshness to something that God begins, that he starts from the ground up. And I was telling
Hmm.
my husband the other day, sometimes things blow up quickly, but I'm all about that organic growth because God does
Hmm.
things line upon line and precept upon precept. He does it in order so we could, one, handle it ourselves and the mission that he's
That's
given
right.
to us. And two, so we learn along the way and put the right steps in the proper order. Because
Hmm.
I think that that's important too, to remember, don't get ahead of God, just go with him on all of this. So I'm super
Hmm.
proud of what you're doing. It's
Thank you.
awesome. It's so cool. Very cool. So where can we
Thank you very
find and
much.
follow you? Like drop all your socials and your website for us again.
Sure. If you go to goodtubekids.com, yeah, you'll find us there. And then you'll find us the same place on Facebook, at goodtubekids.com, Instagram, and Twitter. We're not on TikTok. A few parents are on TikTok. Got to get your kids off of TikTok. It is, I think, one of the deepest wells that they can fall into and most quickly get exposed to pornography and obscene content. Now, I do know that a lot of businesses use it because people are there. So there's a reason to be on there, but we have to be, one of the words we say is intentionally persistent.
Mm.
We have to be intentional and persistent in what we do. But goodtubekids.com, we also have a YouTube channel, and you can sign up for our free email. Just if you go to goodtubekids.com, you'll find everything. And you can subscribe there or look on Apple and Android, and you can find our app there. But Goodtube Kids, it is the like new and up and comer, and we're scrappy and we're looking to take on this digital realm because we just can't stand by any longer.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I'm with you guys on that. For those of you listening, I'll have all the links in the show notes, so you can go there. If you can't find Chris for some reason, again, you'll find those in the show notes. We'll make sure that you guys get in touch. If you have any questions for him, you can reach out. I know that he'll
Hmm.
answer those for you. They're doing
Hmm.
great work. I can't stress enough that we need ministries like this, people like this who are willing to. I mean, look, he left the FBI and said, let's go into this. It blows me away. I think it's amazing.
Yeah.
So if you guys have any questions for him, get in touch, follow him, subscribe, start looking at this content, getting it in front of your kids. If you have any questions for me, you can email me at hello@shandafulbright.com, and I'll catch you on the next one.